Hello, everybody. This is Shawn Harwell. You're listening to the Never Heard of It podcast. This is episode 48.5. That's a lot of episodes. We're getting the decimal points. It's crazy.
It's like
thank you for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the person you just heard talking goes by the name Bob Simmons.
But also Craig Moorhead. And that's my more common name for my friends who are common. And so this is our mini episode where we're just going to talk about a smattering of things, whatever tickles our fancy, you might say. If this is your first time listening, though, please be forewarned that we also have much longer episodes between these mini episodes where we will talk about one movie for the entire time, somehow. So please join us for those. What was our last one, Shawn?
We talked about the 1961 Curtis Harrington directed and adapted film Night Tide, starring Dennis Hopper and Linda Lawson, I believe, if I remember the name correctly, as a woman who thinks she might be a mermaid. And the troubles that creates in her relationship with Dennis Hopper. I think we both thought it was a pretty interesting little flick. It's not perfect. It's on YouTube. Yep. But we enjoyed that chat, and that was a listener suggestion. If you want to suggest a movie, and you should, because we need them, and I feel like the nice thing is about the world we live in right now, Craig, and maybe the only nice thing, is that movies are popping up all over the place. I just turned around, and there's one behind me.
Oh, jeez. Watch out. All right.
But it's good to have some people to sort of act as gatekeepers for that. So, if you're one of those gatekeepers and you know about a movie that's available and out there, let us know. We'd love to check it out. Here's something that I think we got to talk about because, and I don't think we've ever talked about this before, actually, but it made the news in several different ways this week, and I think last week as well. And this is the issue at hand. Sony, apparently, in this being Sony Picture Studio, is doing a new thing where they are releasing clean versions of some of their films as an extra alongside like a digital download. So if you go buy a movie on iTunes, say, or Amazon or Vudu, now you may have the option to watch, say, Ghostbusters, that's on the initial list of films, in a clean version. And boy, are people getting a little upset about this. Judd Apatow has some very harsh words. The DGA has spoken out against this. And I think Seth Rogen as well. You know, there's a lot of people that have long-standing deals at Sony that I guess do not like this. And I don't know. What do you think? Because I will play devil's advocate if you don't, but you go ahead and kind of, what was your initial thoughts like reading some of this?
I mean, my first thought was, okay, so, you know, you've got these filmmakers, they make a movie in their voice, you know, successful movies that we're talking about here, assuming that they have made these movies in the way that they want them made, and then this makes it sort of seem like the studio is not even second guessing them, just like, well, we want to release this, we want to change what you've done and the way that you think this movie should be presented. We want to change it for people who would be offended by who you are and what your movie is.
Right.
So I find that really bizarre and wrong-headed to begin with. But then the only thing I could think of next was, well, but what about when they broadcast something like what was it, Knocked Up? Like if they broadcast that, everybody knows they're going to bleep out the words and they're going to take all the offensive stuff out so they can be broadcast. And so I guess it's kind of like, well, what is the difference then? Like if you still have to buy the original movie the way it is to get that content, I don't know. Honestly, I still do kind of have a problem with it, but it seems like it's something that's already happening, as they point out. For airplane viewing, which honestly, I don't know. I've ever seen a movie that's been cleaned up for an airplane version. Anyway,
yeah.
Regardless, though, yeah. I mean, yeah. Certainly, I would not like it if I made a movie and someone else decided, well, that's too offensive for this other audience, so we're going to change it. That would not be okay by me. So I gotta say, gotta take the filmmaker side on that. What about you?
Well, you definitely stole my devil's advocate argument about the fact that, when things are broadcast, we're getting a clean version frequently, obviously interrupted by commercials all the time. So it's not necessarily the ideal way to watch the movie. No. Certainly not the original presentation.
Right.
I think I read, although I'm not seeing it right here in the article in front of me from the AV Club, that the Sony had the permission from the directors of these films that are on the initial list. And, some of them, just to give you examples, like Big Daddy, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Easy A, the Ghostbusters movies, Goosebumps, Grown Ups, Pixels, Spider-Man, etc., etc. Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, was a little surprised to see those. I think maybe some of those comedies, would require the most cleaning, at least as far as the language is concerned. But I don't know. I scratch my head a little bit about who out there is really clamoring for a clean version of Moneyball. Right. I don't even remember anything offensive in Moneyball. Some of the language, maybe, which I guess, if you want to show there's this great baseball movie I'm dying to show my 14-year-old kid. I don't really want him to hear the F word.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
Can't you just wait 4 years and let your kid watch it when he's 18? I mean, or can't you, just tell him don't repeat these words? I don't know. I don't like that, because I do think it removes the issue of context. There's no lesson learned from somebody watching one of these things. It just feels like they're choosing willful ignorance.
Right.
So I don't like that. I mean, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of plays out, and if it is sort of going to be like a director's versus a studio thing, and why they don't take the same stance against broadcast versions. But again, my initial interest is just, I would love to know the numbers of the people that are actually, how many downloads do they anticipate of this that makes it a viable financial option? Is there really this large audience?
But also, how do you even know if that's why they're buying it? If you're selling it with the original content, you're not selling it by itself, here's the clean version.
They'll never know.
How would you ever know? And maybe it is just an audience broadening trick or something. But who is clamoring for? Well, I'd like to watch Step Brothers, but I don't want any of the offensive stuff in it. Then you don't want to watch Step Brothers.
Yeah, you don't want to watch Step Brothers at all. Yeah.
I will say, though, to go back to being a devil's advocate, if it wasn't for cleaned up versions of movies, I would have had to wait a really long time to see stuff like The Thing, which I definitely saw first time on TV with everything cleaned out, and all it made me want to do was watch the original. Mm-hmm. It was like watching a really long trailer that was really entertaining, because I knew how much stuff, clearly so much stuff was getting cut out, and a lot of movies like that. So if I was a 10-year-old kid who all I wanted to do was watch the real scary movies out there. But again, I don't understand. I'd love to hear Sony's side of this. I hope they put out something that kind of explains why this is such a viable thing, because it just seems really a bizarre thing to do.
Well, I have some insight to that, maybe, which will lead us to the next story. But I think maybe as a filmmaker, I can understand, if I had directed something, specifically the movies on that list, which made millions and millions, if not billions of dollars for the studio in that version that they originally created. So it does in some ways feels like you're sort of taking advantage of something that really benefited you. So I can see the kind of unease there that maybe the filmmaker would have as far as just like a relationship with the studio, and it's kind of like, look, I did you this great thing, and this is how I'm rewarded.
Right.
Like, no, put out my version. Clearly, people liked it. You know, I don't know. That gets a little more interesting when it's maybe lesser known films or something that's a little bit smaller. But anyway.
True.
Maybe the reason that Sony is doing this is because of a service called VidAngel, which I think is the first one that really provided these clean versions as a service. I think frequently they were available at some hotels. But anyway, you know, reading about this on Deadline a little bit, just interesting today as well, it sounds like they got sued by, I think, Disney, Fox, and Warner Brothers about this, you know, because I think they were taking versions and then editing them and making money off of them.
Right.
That somehow, like, I think there's this thing called the Family Movie Act, which I didn't look into, but I do think that maybe is about the broadcast side. Like, there's certain things that, you know, allows these edits that we're talking about, and VidAngel was kind of working around that act. But now it sounds like, because they're going to get killed in court, they are moving everything they do to the cloud and have some sort of service that's coming out that will allow you to access a clean version of a movie that's available on Netflix or Amazon, like any these subscription services that you already have an account for.
Right.
And that's really fascinating. Like, how the hell do you do that? Like, to me, I'm asking, is this just going to be a list of movies that are actually available, or is there some sort of algorithm that they have that is going to, like, just randomly, you know, some computer is saying, oh, you know, there's certain words that get flagged, or how that works? Like, what does that possibly look like? So I'm kind of curious on the technology side of this story as far as that's concerned. But I also just kind of wish they would go away. Yes.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, maybe that is Sony's aim, and that would be great. And honestly, but I wouldn't know why they would not just come right out with that in a way. Yeah. Just say it like, no, we want to put something like that out of business. So you buy our stuff, you get a clean version that we created, and you know, and then we put something like that out of business. Because I don't understand how VidAngel exists as a business. I don't see how any of that is legal. And I honestly don't understand. Are they changing the stream? You pay $7.99, but it works with Amazon and Netflix streams. Like, I have no idea how they're accomplishing that. And again, and I would say again, who are the nimrods who use this service? Are you a nimrod who uses this service? Please write to us. I'd never heard of it. But really, I mean,
Nimrod in the subject line.
Yeah,
please.
Like, again, let's go back to the Step Brothers example.
Yeah.
How are you going to clean that movie up? Like, what movie are you going to, like, clean just enough? Like, oh, that's much cleaner for me now. Like, just watch movies that are clean. There's decades of movies that are clean enough for you. I don't know.
Like Night Tide, for example.
Night Tide is what you should be constantly watching.
Well, it sounds like maybe there's an experiment to be had, and I don't know. I'll look into it maybe, because I think the streaming option has literally just been announced. Like, I don't think that's available yet, if I read that article correctly. So I don't know. I might look into that and maybe sit down one night and just watch a version of these just to see what the crap it looks like and how well it's filtering out and what you're left with, really. Like, if it's removing a story, that's a big problem. If it's if it's replacing curse words with something else, that's different. You know, I watched The Sopranos on A&E. Like, you know, they they use cockroaches instead of, you know, a lot of other alternatives. And it was still good. You know, the story was still intact. But yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, that was the other thing I was thinking was, you know, if Sony was going to do this, if all the studios were going to do this, you know, a lot of times I understand anyway that they will sometimes do like clean takes and stuff for a clean version of the movie. So throw a little more in the budget and let them just do some weird stuff for the clean version.
Yeah,
like it's still your movie, but you make the clean version, and everyone gets kind of a new entertainment out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, on Eastbound and Down, I remember the first season, the script supervisor was kind of in charge of making sure that we got a few clean takes. And, there was a list of words, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that would not pass the muster. And it just quickly got abandoned. It was just like, there's just no way that this is going to work.
Not on that show.
And so, I think maybe it's the opposite. It's or maybe that is exactly what happens. Is like, if the filmmakers are being pressured to do that, they probably go the opposite direction sometimes, and make it dirtier. There was quite a big story today, which I think this is one of the first times that I'm aware of where a individual was targeted and, as mentioned, name exposed and everything, as having been arrested for releasing a pirated movie on a major platform. And this is 21-year-old guy who put Deadpool out on Facebook while it was still in theaters.
Yeah. And
apparently it got 5 million views, more than 5 million, within 8 days of its release date. Do you think Facebook has any sort of liability in that, or responsibility? If it was up long enough, think about this, like putting something on Facebook. I can't think of a single thing I could possibly post that would get 5 million. In my I don't even see how that spider web would work. Even if I put Deadpool up, I don't know if this guy somehow is connected to something larger on Facebook that would generate that number of views. But I don't know. What do you think? Do they have any sort of responsibility? And I don't know. Maybe they did flag this and pull it down.
Yeah.
But obviously not quickly enough to prevent 5 million people from watching it. Excuse me.
Well, that is tough. Certainly if they had a hand in spreading the word, then they definitely would be, culpable for that. But I feel like,
right.
I don't know. It seems kind of hard to say, the maker of the software that made it possible, is really liable.
Yeah.
Certainly not more than the individual who did it. They have. Facebook is huge. I don't know what their policing resources are, but
well, and there's a difference between free speech and copyright infringement. Obviously, this is not like Reddit where someone is just posting hate speech or something. That's where I think it gets a little tricky,
right?
And again, we've talked about YouTube being a major question mark in that whole arena.
For sure.
But I don't know. And I was a little surprised. Like, this article was on Deadline. I kind of expected them to at least mention this idea, whether Facebook owes any sort of responsibility on this, and they didn't. So I don't know. I guess Zuckerberg's he's safe for one more night, probably. There's no way that guy would generate any sort of ad revenue off of 5 million views on Facebook that I know of, right?
Not that I know of, yeah.
Yeah, if it was on YouTube, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Kind of what's in it for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for jail.
Jail, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I wanted to just mention 2 little movies real quickly, and then we'll talk about this New York Times article that you found. One just sounds kind of interesting to me. It's just the news that A24, which is a company we talked about before, they picked up this movie called Dog Years, and it's directed by Adam Rifkin. He's done a bunch of different little things, and he was a writer on, I think, Small Soldiers and Mouse Hunt and some big studio movies. But he made a movie that stars Burt Reynolds. It's got Chevy Chase in it as well, Eller Coltrane from Boyhood. And, supposedly it's about Reynolds playing an aging actor who travels to a film festival to pick up a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Right.
And I don't know, just something about that sounds kind of interesting to me. Like, why haven't I seen something like that before? It feels like a story that should have been tapped by this point.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting person to cast in that role. It says that he was only interested in making the movie if Burt would do it. We have some friends that made a movie with Burt Reynolds, so maybe once this movie comes out, we'll get them on to talk about their experiences with Burt. But
I would love to know.
We'll keep an eye on that. It sounded kind of interesting to me.
Agreed.
And then the other movie is this movie called Brigsby Bear, which there's a trailer floating around, which is a really interesting looking little flick here. I'll post a link to it when we drop this episode. But this is a movie, A, produced by the guys on The Lonely Island, and B, it stars Kyle Mooney from, I guess he's on the current cast of SNL. I haven't really watched, so my own fault there. But you also got Claire Danes. It looks like Mark Hamill has a pretty juicy, sizable role here.
Yeah.
And Greg Kinnear and a couple other people, Matt Walsh as well. But it's about a guy who apparently grew up being exposed only to one TV show that was specifically produced for him. And I think lived in a bunker. And so now he's like going out into the real world. And it just looks really inventive. And that's a pretty interesting little concept. Mm-hmm. The show that he was exposed to definitely has like a Teddy Ruxpin kind of vibe to it as far as the title bear. And I don't know. I think it's one that'll be on my radar.
Yeah, I like Kyle Mooney a lot. So I'm glad he's kind of doing his own weird stuff.
And it looks like both Sundance and the Cannes Film Festival played this thing, so it must be doing something right.
Nice.
So, Craig, you pointed my attention to an article at the New York Times. I think Manola Dargis and A.O. Scott are heavily involved in this thing, but this is a list like many internet lists, but has a little more weight behind it because it's the New York Times. And we've got the top 25 films of the 21st century so far. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff I've never seen or possibly never heard of in some cases, which I think is maybe to be expected of the New York Times.
Sure.
Anything that jumped out to you on this list?
Well, yeah, I mean, the list itself, lists obviously are just created, this is the most random list, right? It's 2017, totally, and they're going to talk about the best 25 movies that have been made in the first 17 years of the, what?
Slow day at the Times.
Yeah, kind of, but most of us are suckers for lists, so we dive into it. I guess that's the thing. Like, I was surprised to see some movies, and they're movies that I really like Spirited Away is on here, which I thought was awesome. I was really surprised to see $1 Million Baby. I like that movie.
Number three,
right? Yeah, like the third best movie in the last 17 years. I'm like, really?
Biggest surprise for me by far was the placement of that one.
Yeah. And what was the other one? I'm going down here. I can tell you, I love the way they built this particular page, but I wish fantastic. I could just see the 25 movies. It was 1 through 25. Yeah. Inside Llewyn Davis, which I think is also great. Mm-hmm. Hurt Locker is like, all right, I guess.
I was a fan of Hurt Locker. I don't know that I would place it as highly as they did. But,
well, I guess that's the thing. I like it, but still, it's kind of like top 25 of the last 17. Right. How many movies get made in 17 years? Munich, which I was like, wow, all right. Which again, it's a good movie. I don't really dispute it, but I'm kind of like, wow, I just haven't heard people talk about Munich in a long time.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even think of it as happening in the past 25 years, honestly. Like, I thought it was before that, but maybe that's why this list exists. My other big surprise, actually, was that Inside Out was number 7. Sure. And I really like that movie. It's a really strong Pixar movie that I feel like I overlooked in some ways. Like, I don't think it's one that a lot of kids necessarily return to unless I'm crazy.
Right.
But I don't know that it would be that high on my list. I certainly would have WALL-E well above that.
Sure.
Personally, that's just me. I'm a big WALL-E fan. But I think it was nice to see Pixar represented on here. I mean, I think you have to.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the past 25 years. Anyway, interesting list, as always, worthy of debate. We'll share it. I would love to hear someone make a strong case for $1 Million Baby as the number 3 spot there. I think that's maybe the most controversial thing about this list, perhaps.
Well, and I would even say, too, for the number 25, 40-year-old virgin, again, not that it doesn't belong on this list, but like I get to that, and I'm kind of like, really? Like, that's the top 25? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't have anything to put in its place, except for maybe The Witch. You know? Maybe The Witch.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I think I could put things in its place. I think, maybe 4-Year-Old Virgin gets a pass because that did sort of like kickstart that wave of those Judd movies and the stuff that he produced. I mean, I kind of prefer Superbad even, to that movie. But that said, in the context of it, maybe there's more to appreciate there. Anyway, you can have fun with it, debating it. Yeah. And we'll be back also with our own list of our 25 best podcasts that we've done.
Yeah.
Just since February.
That's good. That's good.
So we're going to get real specific.
I've almost gotten mine, done. So I'm ready.
I don't think we've done 25, so it'll be pretty easy. It'll be short.
Yeah. Well, top 25 sentences that we've spoken in the podcast. How about that?
That's great.
There we go.
That's perfect.
Yep.
Let's talk about what we're gonna watch next time, and the next full movie we do is going to be, and I'm the guilty party on this one. I was looking at Amazon and found a movie from the 80s that looked like the perfect teen 80s movie, and I had never heard of it. It was called Dangerous Curves. It's from 1988. Stars Tate Donovan and Grant Heslov. It was on Amazon Prime. It's not anymore. You can rent it from Amazon, but I found it, Craig, on Vudu for free. They are doing some movies with ads for free, and I don't even think you have to sign in. I could be wrong about that.
Sure.
Looked great, so go check that out there if you want to. Otherwise, you can rent it somewhere and have some fun going back in time a little bit.
Right on. And in the meantime, if you want to, you can go maybe find us on your iTunes, subscribe to us, give us a review, let your friends know. Of course, we're online at neverheardpodcast.com. We're on Twitter at neverpodcast. Drop us a line. Instagram, we're there too. We're not hiding. We're not hiding from you.
Nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide.